Patanjali Yoga Sutra, commentary by Swami Vivekanand in my voice. So far, we have covered the first two chapters, that is, Samadhi Pada and Sadhana Pada. Before we continue further, I want to make a correction. I recently got to know that it is not Pada, it is Pad in Hindi. So far we have covered Samadhi Pada and Sadhana Pada. And with this video, we are starting with chapter 3, that is Vibhuti Pada, the chapter of powers. Sutra number 1. Deshbandhaschittasya dharana. Meaning, dharana is holding the mind onto some particular object. Dharana, concentration, is when the mind holds on to some object, either in the body or outside the body, and keeps itself in that state. Sutra number 2. Tatra pratyayektanata dhyanam. Meaning, an unbroken flow of knowledge to that object is dhyan. The mind tries to think of one object to hold itself to one particular spot as the top of the head, the heart, etc. And if the mind succeeds in receiving the sensations only through that part of the body and through no other part, that would be dharana. And when the mind succeeds in keeping itself in that state for some time, it is called dhyana, meditation. Sutra number 3. Tad evarth matra nirbhasam swarupa shunyam iv samadhi. Meaning, when that giving up all forms reflects only the meaning, it is samadhi. That is, when in meditation all forms are given up. Suppose I were meditating on a book and that I have gradually succeeded in concentrating the mind on it and perceiving only the internal sensations, the meaning unexpressed in any form, that state of dhyan is called samadhi. Sutra number 4. Trayamekatra sanyamaha. Meaning, these three, when practiced in regard to one object, is samyam. When a man can direct his mind to any particular object and fix it there, and then keep it there for a long time, separating the object from the internal part, this is samyam, or dharana, dhyan and samadhi, one following the other, and making one. The form of the thing has vanished and only its meaning remains in the mind. Sutra number 5. Tajjayat pragyalokaha. Meaning, by the conquest of that comes light of knowledge. When one has succeeded in making this samyam, all powers come under his control. This is the great instrument of the yogi. The object of knowledge are infinite, and they are divided into gross, grosser, grossest, and the fine, finer, finest, and so on. This samyam should be first applied to gross things, and when you begin to get knowledge of the gross, slowly by stages it should be brought to finer things. Sutra number 6. Tasya bhumishu viniyogaha. Meaning, that should be employed in stages. This is a note of warning not to attempt to go too fast. Sutra number 7. Trayamantarangam purvebhyaha. Meaning, these three are nearer than those that precede. Before these, we had the pranayam, the asana, the yam and niyam. These are external parts of these three: dharana, dhyan, and samadhi. Yet these later even are external to the seedless samadhi. When a man has attained to them, he may attain to omniscience and omnipresence. But that would not be salvation. These three would not make the mind nirvikalpa, changeless, but would leave the seeds for getting bodies again. Only when the seeds are, as the yogi says, fried, do they lose the possibility of producing further plants. These powers cannot fry the seed. Sutra number 8. Tadapi bahirangam nirbijasya. Meaning, but even they are external to the seedless samadhi. Compared with that seedless samadhi, therefore, even these are external. We have not yet reached the real samadhi, the highest but to a lower stage, in which this universe still exists as we see it, and in which are all these power. Sutra number 9. व्युत्थान निरोध संस्कारयोर विभव प्रादुर्भावो निरोध क्षण चित्तान्वयो निरोध परिणामः. Meaning, by the suppression of the disturbed modifications of the mind and by the rise of modifications of control, the mind is said to attain the controlling modifications, following the controlling powers of the mind. That is to say, in this first state of samadhi, the modifications of the mind have been controlled, but not perfectly, because if they were, there would be no modifications. If there is a modification which impels the mind to rush out through the senses, and the yogi tries to control it, that very control itself will be a modification. One wave will be checked by another wave, so it will not be a real samadhi. When all the waves have subsided, as control itself will be a wave. Yet this lower samadhi is very much nearer to the higher samadhi than when the mind comes bubbling out. Sutra number 10. Tasya prashantavahita sanskarat. Meaning, its flow becomes steady by habit. The flow of this continuous control of the mind becomes steady when practices day after day and the mind obtains the faculty of constant concentration. Sutra number 11. Sarvartha taikagratayoho shayodayo chittasya samadhi parinamaha. Meaning, taking in all sorts of objects and concentrating upon one object, these two powers being destroyed and manifested respectively, the chitta gets the modification called samadhi. The mind is taking up various objects, running into all sorts of things. And then there is a higher state of the mind when it takes up one object and excludes all others. Samadhi is the result of that. Sutra number 12. Tatah punaha shantuditau tulya pratyayau chittasyaiकाग्रता parinamaha. Meaning, the one-pointedness of the chitta is when it grasps in one, the past and present. How are we to know that the mind has become concentrated? Because time will vanish. The more time vanishes, the more concentrated we are. In common life, we see that when we are interested in a book, we do not note the time at all. And when we leave the book, we are often surprised to find how many hours have passed. All time will have the tendency to come and stand in the one present. So the definition is given When the past and present come and stand in one, the more concentrated the mind. Sutra number 13. एतेन भूतेन्द्रियेषु धर्मलक्षणावस्था परिणामा व्याख्याताः. Meaning, by this is explained the threefold transformations of form, time, and state, in fine or gross matter and in the organs. By this, the threefold changes in the mind stuff as to form, time, and state are explained. The mind stuff is changing into vrittis. This is change as to form. To be able to hold the changes to the present time is change as to time. To be able to make the mind stuff go to the past forms, giving up the present event, is change as to state. The concentrations taught in the preceding aphorisms were to give the yogi a voluntary control over the transformations of his mind stuff, which alone will enable him to make the samyam before named. Sutra number 14. शान्तोदिताव्यपदेश्य धर्मानुपाति धर्मी. Meaning, that which is acted upon by transformations, either past, present, or yet to be manifested, is the qualified. That is to say, the qualified is a substance which is being acted upon by time and by the samskars and getting changed and being manifested all the time. Sutra number 15. Kramanyatvam parinamanyatve hetuhu. Meaning, the succession of changes is the cause of manifold evolution. Sutra number 16. Parinamatraya sanyamada atitanagatagyanam. Meaning, by making samyam on the three sorts of changes comes the knowledge of past and future. We must not lose sight of the first definition of samyam. When the mind has attained to that state when it identifies itself with the internal impressions of the object, leaving the external, and when by long practice that is retained by the mind, and the mind can get into that state in a moment, that is samyam. If a man in that state wants to know the past and future, he has to make a samyam on the changes in the samskars. Some are working now at present, some have worked out, and some are waiting to work. So by making a samyam on these, he knows the past and future. Sutra number 17. Shabdartha pratyayanamitretaraadhyasat sankarastattva pravibhaga sanyamat sarvabhutarut jnanam. Meaning, by making samyam on word, meaning and knowledge, which are ordinarily confused, comes the knowledge of all animal sounds. The word represents the external cause. The meaning represents the internal vibration that travels to the brain through the channels of indriyas, conveying the external impression to the mind, and knowledge represents the reaction of the mind, with which comes perception. These three confused make our sense objects. Suppose I hear a word, there is first the external vibration, next the internal sensation carried to the mind by the organ of hearing. Then mind reacts and I know the word. The word I know is a mixture of the three: vibration, sensation, and reaction. Ordinarily, these three are inseparable, but by practice, the yogi can separate them. When a man has attained to this, If he makes a samyam on any sound, he understands the meaning which that sound was intended to express, whether it was made by man or by any other animal. Sutra number 18. संस्कार साक्षात्करणात् पूर्वजाति ज्ञानम. Meaning: by perceiving the impressions, knowledge of past life. Each experience that we have comes in the form of a wave in the chitta, and this subsides and becomes finer and finer, but is never lost. It remains there in minute form, and if we can bring this wave up again, it becomes memory. So, if the yogi can make a samyam on these past impressions in the mind, he will begin to remember all his past lives. Sutra number 19. Pratyayasya parichitta jnanam. Meaning: by making samyam on the signs in another's, both knowledge of that mind comes. Suppose each man has particular signs on his body which differentiate him from others. When the yogi makes a samyam on these signs peculiar to a certain man, he knows the nature of the mind of that person. Sutra number 20. न च तत्सालम्बनं तस्य विषयीभूतत्वात्. Meaning: but not its contents, that not being the object of the samyam. He would not know the contents of the mind by making a samyam on the body. There would be required a twofold samyam, first on the signs in the body and then on the mind itself. The yogi would then know everything that is in that mind, past, present, and future. Sutra number 21. Kaya रूप संयमात तद्ग्रहा शक्ति स्तंभे चक्षुः प्रकाशा संप्रयोग्यंतरधानम. Meaning: by making samyam on the form of the body, the power of perceiving forms being obstructed, the power of manifestation in the eye being separated, the yogi's body becomes unseen. A yogi standing in the midst of this room can apparently vanish. He does not really vanish, but he will not be seen by anyone. The form and the body are, as it were, separated. You must remember that this can only be done when the yogi has attained to that power of concentration, when form and the thing formed have been separated. Then he makes a samyam on that, and the power to perceive forms is obstructed, because the power of perceiving forms comes from the junction of form and the thing formed. Sutra number 22. Eten shabdadhyantardhanamuktam. Meaning: by this the disappearance or concealment of words which are being spoken is also explained. Sutra number 23. Sopakramam nirupakramam cha karma tatsanyamad parantagyanamarishtebhyo va. Meaning: karma is of two kinds, soon to be fructified and late to be fructified. By making samyam on that, or by the signs called arishtha, portents, the yogis know the exact time of separation from their bodies. When the yogi makes a samyam on his own karma, upon those impressions in his mind which are now working and those which are just waiting to work, He knows exactly by those that are waiting when his body will fall. He knows when he will die, at what hour, even at what minute. The Hindus think very much of that knowledge or consciousness of the nearness of death because it is taught in the Gita that the thoughts at the moment of departure are great powers in determining the next life. Sutra number 24. Maitriyadishu balani. Meaning, by making samyam on friendship, etc., various strength comes. Sutra number 25. Baleshu hasti baladini. Meaning, by making samyam on the strength of the elephant, etc., that strength comes to the yogi. When a yogi has attained to this samyam and wants strength, he makes a samyam on the strength of the elephant and gets it. Infinite energy is at the disposal of everyone, if he only knows how to get it. The yogi has discovered the science of getting it. Sutra number 26. प्रवृत्त्यालोकन्यासात् सूक्ष्मव्यवहितविप्रकृष्टज्ञानम्. Meaning, by making samyam on that effulgent light comes the knowledge of the fine, the obstructed and the remote. When the yogi makes samyam on that effulgent light, in the heart he sees things which are very remote. Things, for instance, that are happening in a distant place and which are obstructed by mountain barriers, and also things which are very fine. Sutra number 27. Bhuvanagyanam surye sanyamat. Meaning, by making samyam on the sun comes the knowledge of the world. Sutra number 28. Chandre Tara Vyuha Jnanam. Meaning, on the moon comes the knowledge of the cluster of stars. Sutra number 29. Dhruve Tadgati Jnanam. Meaning, on the pole star comes the knowledge of the motions of the stars. Sutra number 30. Nabhi Chakre Kaya Vyuha Jnanam. Meaning, on the navel circle comes the knowledge of the constitution of the body. Sutra number 31. Kanthakupe Shuptipasani Vrittihi. Meaning, on the hollow of the throat comes cessation of hunger. When a man is very hungry, if he can make samyam on the pit of the throat, hunger ceases. Sutra number 32. Kurmanadyam sthairyam. Meaning, on the nerve called kurma comes fixity of the body. When he is practicing, the body is not disturbed. Sutra number 33. Murdha Jyotishi Siddha Darshanam. Meaning, on the light emanating from the top of the head, sight of the Siddhas. The Siddhas are beings who are a little above ghosts. When the yogi concentrates his mind on the top of his head, he will see these Siddhas. The word Siddha does not refer to those men who have become free, a sense in which it is often used. Sutra number 34. Pratibhadva Sarvam. Meaning, or by the power of Pratibha, all knowledge. All these can come without any samyam to the man who has the power of Pratibha, enlightenment from purity. This is when a man has risen to a high state of Pratibha. Then he has that great light. All things are apparent to him. Everything comes to him naturally, without making samyam on anything. Sutra number 35. Hridaye chitta samvita. Meaning, in the heart, knowledge of minds. Sutra number 36. Sattva purushayoratyanta sankiranayoho pratyaya vishesho bhogaha pararthatvat swartha sanyamat purusha jnanam. Meaning, enjoyment comes by the non-discrimination of the very distant soul and sattva. Its actions are for another. Samyam on this gives knowledge of the Purusa. This power of non-attachment acquired through purity gives the yogi the enlightenment called Pratibha. Sutra number 37. ततः प्रातिभ श्रावण वेदना दर्शा स्वादवार्ता जायन्ते. Meaning, from that arises the knowledge of hearing, touching, seeing, tasting and smelling belonging to Pratibha. Sutra number 38. ते समाधावुपसर्गा व्युत्थाने सिद्धयः. Meaning, these are obstacles to samadhi, but they are powers in the worldly state. If the yogi knows all these enjoyments of the world, it comes by the junction of the Purusa and the mind. If he wants to make samyam on this, that they are two different things, nature and soul, he gets knowledge of the Purusa. From that arises discrimination. When he has got the discrimination, he gets the Pratibha, the light of supreme genius. These powers, however, are obstructions to the attainment of the highest goal, the knowledge of the pure self and freedom. These are, as it were, to be met in the way, and if the yogi rejects them, he attains the highest. If he is tempted to acquire these, his further progress is barred. Sutra number 39. बंध कारण शैथिल्यात् प्रचार संवेदनाच चित्तस्य परशरीरावेशः. Meaning, when the cause of bondage has become loosened, the yogi by his knowledge of manifestation through the organs enters another's body. The yogi can enter a dead body and make it get up and move, even while he himself is working in another body. Or he can enter a living body and hold that man's mind and organs in check, and for the time being act through the body of that man. That is done by the yogi coming to this discrimination of Purusa and nature. If he wants to enter another's body, he makes a samyam on that body and enters it. Because not only is his soul omnipresent, but his mind also, according to the yogi. It is one bit of the universal mind. Now, however, it can only work through the nerve currents in this body, but when the yogi has loosened himself from these nerve currents, he will be able to work through other things. Sutra number 40. उदान जया जल पंक कंट कादिश्व संग उत्क्रांतिश्च. Meaning: by conquering the current called Udan, the yogi does not sink in water or in swamps, and he can walk on thorns. Udan is the name of the nerve current that governs the lungs and all the upper parts of the body. And when he is master of it, he becomes light in weight. He cannot sink in water. He can walk on thorns and sword blades and stand in fire and so on. Sutra number 41. Saman Jayat Prajwalanam. Meaning: by the conquest of the current Samana, he is surrounded by blaze. Whenever he likes, light flashes from his body. Sutra number 42. श्रोत्राकाशयोः संबंध संयमा दिव्यम श्रोतम. Meaning: by making samyam on the relation between the ear and the akas comes divine hearing. There is the akas, the ether, and the instrument, the ear. By making samyam on them, the yogi gets divine hearing. He hears everything. Anything spoken or sounded miles away, he can hear. Sutra number 43. कायाकाशयोः सम्बन्ध संयमाल गुतुल समापत्तेश्चाकाशगमनम्. Meaning: by making samyam on the relation between the akas and the body, the yogi, becoming light as cotton wool, goes through the skies. This akas is the material of this body. It is only akas in a certain form that has become the body. If the yogi makes samyam on this akas material of his body, it acquires the lightness of akas and can go anywhere through the air. Sutra number 44. बहिर्कल्पिता वृत्तिर्महाविदेहा ततः प्रकाशावरणशयः. Meaning: by making samyam on the real modifications of the mind, which are outside, called great disembodiedness, comes disappearance of the covering to light. The mind in its foolishness thinks that it is working in this body. Why should I be bound by one system of nerves and put the ego only in one body if the mind is omnipresent? There is no reason why I should. The yogi wants to feel the ego wherever he likes. When he has succeeded in that, all covering to light goes away, and all darkness and ignorance vanish. Everything appears to him to be full of knowledge. Sutra number 45. स्थूल स्वरूप सूक्ष्मान्वयार्थ वत्व संयमाद भूत्व जय. Meaning: by making samyam on the elements, beginning with the gross and ending with the superfine, comes mastery of the elements. The yogi makes samyam on the elements, first on the gross and then on the finer states. This samyam is taken up more by a sect of the Buddhists. They take a lump of clay and make samyam on that, and gradually they begin to see the fine materials of which it is composed. And when they have known all the fine elements in it, they get power over that element. So with all the elements, the yogi can conquer them all. Sutra number 46. Tato adimadi pradurбhavah kaya sampata tad dharman bighatascha. Meaning: from that comes minuteness. and the rest of the powers, glorification of the body, and indestructibleness of the body qualities. This means that the yogi has attained the eight powers. He can make himself as light as a particle, he can make himself huge, as heavy as the earth, or as light as the air. He will rule everything he wants. He will conquer everything he wants. A lion will sit at his feet like a lamb, and all his desires will be fulfilled at will. Sutra number 47. रूप लावण्य बल वज्र संहननत्वानि काय संपत. Meaning, the glorifications of the body are beauty, complexion, strength, adamantine hardness. The body becomes indestructible. Fire cannot injure it. Nothing can injure it. Nothing can destroy it until the yogi wishes. Breaking the rod of time, he lives in this universe with his body. In the Vedas, it is written that for that man, there is no more disease, death, or pain. Sutra number 48. ग्रहण स्वरूपास्मितान्वयार्थवत्व संयमादेन्द्रिय जयः. Meaning, by making samyam on the objectivity, knowledge and egoism of the organs, by gradation comes the conquest of the organs. In perception of external objects, the organs leave their place in the mind and go towards the object. That is followed by knowledge and egoism. When the yogi makes samyam on these by gradation, he conquers the organs. Take up anything that you see or feel, a book for instance, and first concentrate the mind on the thing itself, then on the knowledge that it is in the form of a book, and then the ego that sees the book. By that practice, all the organs will be conquers. Sutra number 49. Tato manoja vitvam vikarana bhava pradhana jayascha. Meaning, from that comes glorified mind, power of the organs independently of the body, and conquest of nature. Just as by the conquest of the elements comes glorified body, so from the conquest of the mind will come glorified mind. Sutra number 50. Sattva purushanyata khyati matrasya sarva bhavadishtatritvam sarva gyatritvam cha. Meaning, by making samyam on the sattva, to him who has discriminated between the intellect and the purusa comes omnipresence and omniscience. When we have conquered nature and realized the difference between the purusa and nature, that the purusa is indestructible, pure and perfect, when the yogi has realized this, then comes omnipotence and omniscience. Sutra number 51. Tadvairagyadapi dosha bijasaye kaivalyam. Meaning, by giving up even these comes the destruction of the very seed of evil. He attains kaivalya. He attains aloneness, independence. Then that man is free. When he gives up even the ideas of omnipotence and omniscience, there will be entire rejection of enjoyment of the temptations from the celestial beings. When the yogi has seen all these wonderful powers and rejected them, he reaches the goal. What are all these powers? Simply manifestations. They are no better than dreams. Even omnipotence is a dream. It depends on the mind. So long as there is a mind, it can be understood. But the goal is beyond even the mind. Sutra number 52. स्थान्युपनिमन्त्रणे साङ्गस्म्याकरणं पुनः अनिष्टप्रसङ्गात्. Meaning, the yogi should not feel allured or flattered by the overtures of celestial beings for fear of evil gain. There are other dangers too. Gods and other beings come to tempt the yogi. They do not want anyone to be perfectly free. They are jealous, just as we are, and worse than we sometimes. They are very much afraid of losing their places. Those yogis who do not reach perfection die and become gods. Leaving the direct road, they go into one of the side streets and get these powers. Then again they have to be born. But he who is strong enough to withstand these temptations and go straight to the goal becomes free. Sutra number 53. षडतत्क्रमयोः संयमाद् विवेकजनं ज्ञानम्. Meaning, by making samyam on a particle of time and its multiples comes discrimination. How are we to avoid all these things, these devas and heavens and powers? By discrimination, by knowing good from evil. Therefore, a samyam is given by which the power of discrimination can be strengthened. This is by making samyam on a particle of time. Sutra number 54. Jati lakshana deshairanyataan vachchedat tulyayostataha pratipattihi. Meaning, those which cannot be differentiated by species, sign, and place, even they will be discriminated by the above samyam. The misery that we suffer comes from ignorance, from non-discrimination between the real and the unreal. We all take the bad for the good, the dream for the reality. Soul is the only reality, and we have forgotten it. Body is an unreal dream, and we think we are all bodies. This non-discrimination is the cause of misery, and it is caused by ignorance. When discrimination comes, it brings strength, and then alone can we avoid all these various ideas of body, heavens and gods and devas. This ignorance arises through differentiating by species, sign or place. For instance, take a cow. The cow is differentiated from the dog as species. Even with the cows alone, how do we make the distinction between one cow and another? By signs. If two objects are exactly similar, they can be distinguished if they are in different places. When objects are so mixed up that even this differentiation will not help us, the power of discrimination acquired by the above mentioned practice will give us the ability to distinguish them. The highest philosophy of the yogi is based upon this fact that the Purusa is pure and perfect and is the only simple that exists in this universe. The body and mind are compounds, and yet we are ever identifying ourselves with them. That is the great mistake that the distinction has been lost. When this power of discrimination has been attained, man sees that everything in this world, mental and physical, is a compound and as such cannot be the Purusa. Sutra number 55. तारकं सर्वविषयं सर्वथा विषयम् अक्रमं चेति विवेकजनं ज्ञानम्. Meaning, the saving knowledge is that knowledge of discrimination which covers all objects, all means. Saving. because the knowledge takes the yogi across the ocean of birth and death. The whole of Prakriti in all its states, subtle and gross, is within the grasp of this knowledge. There is no succession in perfection by this knowledge. It takes in all things simultaneously at a glance. Sutra number 56. Sattva Purushayoho Shuddhi Samye Kaivalyam Iti. Meaning, by the similarity of purity between the Sattva and the Purusa comes Kaivalya. When the soul realizes that it depends on nothing in the universe, from gods to the lowest atom, that it is called Kaivalya, isolation and perfection. It is attained when this mixture of purity and impurity called mind has been made as pure as the Purusa itself. Then the Sattva, the mind, reflects only the unqualified essence of purity, which is the Purusa. And with this, we have come to an end of chapter 3, Vibhuti Pada.